I am going to get so much hate mail on this one. But welcome to the Hostile Takeover, where we demystify Wall Street to help you make money in a rigged system. We are here to get you rich smart, not get you rich quick. My name is Rob. I'm a real estate entrepreneur. I'm a former mergers and acquisitions attorney at a top 10 New York law firm, former faculty member at a top 8 business school. Most importantly, I have been navigating these markets for 25 years and making money. I am self-taught and I want to teach you that knowledge too. I want to help you pay off those student loans, pay off that car loan, help you buy your first house. So let's get to making some money. It is fun day today at the Takeover. We are going to be talking everything fund related today. Mutual funds, index funds, ETFs, and a special mystery fund at the end of this video. But before we get into the funds, I want to ask yourself something. Why would you put your money across a bunch of different assets? Why not just put it all into Zookoin or whatever Logan Paul's peddling this week? I'll tell you why. Because it can go from hero to zero like that and you'll be out all your money. So what's the solution? Diversification is the practice of spreading your money across multiple assets so you don't get burned on one. Think Logan Paul and Zookoin. Now, I want you to think of diversification this way. You only stream Netflix. It's the only service you got. Stranger Things ends.
Bye-bye.
All that's left is some videos about Lithuanian girls picking flowers in postmodern society. It sucks. You got nothing else, so you're stuck with it. Or you could get a bundle with Netflix, HBO Max, Hulu, Disney Plus, and be binging Mando, watching The Sopranos again, and just having a good old time. That's diversification. You are diversifying across multiple streaming platforms in order to be able to enjoy it. Same thing with stocks. You diversify across multiple stocks, so that way, if one of them sucks, you can always watch something else.
This sucks. Change it.
Putting money into funds is just simply a way of diversifying across assets, so that way we don't get burnt by one single asset. A fund is nothing more than a group of stocks or other assets that are packaged together and sold as one unit. Think of it like buying a bag of M&Ms. You don't go into the 7-Eleven or Stewart's and buy one M&M. No, you buy the entire package. That's kind of what a fund is. You're getting the benefit of each M&M, but you're getting it in one package and one buy. Today we're going to talk about 4 kinds of funds. Mutual funds, index funds, exchange-traded funds, and a 4th mystery fund that a lot of brokers don't even know about. But we're going to talk about it today. So let's get on to the fun with funds and make some money.
So when you have a professional manager and an active management style, they actually need to be compensated somehow. So basically, that's the biggest difference here.
We hope he's not a bozo.
Typically higher fees to basically help compensate the portfolio manager that's making all the decisions. Typically, mutual funds like to charge 1 to 2% per year of
very expensive
mutual fund.
Mutual funds are the OG of funds. Your grandfather probably. With mutual funds, you hire a manager to actually pick and choose the stocks. Going back to our M&M example, it's as if you would hire somebody to actually figure out what color M&Ms go into the bag.
Thanks for introducing us.
Now, there's generally 4 or 5 different types of mutual funds. You've got equity funds, which are basically stocks, fixed income funds, which are bonds, blended funds, which are a mix of stocks and bonds, money market funds, which are cash, essentially, and then target date funds, which are essentially retirement vessels. The upside of mutual funds is you get diversification. But there's 3 big downsides. 1, that active manager, the guy picking out the M&Ms, is expensive as hell. You're going to have to pay him a good amount, 1 to 2%. Number 2, because these funds buy and sell the stocks, you could have capital gains consequences, so tax consequences. And number 3, you can only buy or sell mutual funds once per day, 4 o'clock a day. Meaning, if there's some sort of a panic or you want to get out of the market, at 11 in the morning, you're stuck until 4 p.m. that day.
The biggest difference of an index fund is that they have a passive management style. So what that means is there's no active fund manager. So you're probably now wondering, well then, Humphrey, who the hell picks
a lot of savings there.
Well, my
lot of
friend,
money
an
savings.
Index fund is just constructed to basically match the return and the risk of its underlying market. In this case, with VFIAX, you can buy an
This is a great place to start out if you're just new to investing.
For around $300, you get to own a small percentage of the entire index.
If you thought mutual funds were boring, index funds just said, hold my beer. An index fund is very similar to mutual funds. It's a grouping of stocks that gives you the benefit of diversification. However, the big difference is that there isn't an active manager. There's not some bozo choosing what color M&Ms go in the bag. Instead, it's a preset formula. There's multiple kinds of index funds out there. One that tracks the S&P 500, one that tracks the Russell 2000, the Dow Industrials. You get the idea. Now, ironically enough, index funds, even though they're cheaper, tend to beat mutual funds in terms of performance 90% of the time.
What?
That's one of the reasons that I highly, highly recommend an index fund, especially if you're just getting started investing. It's not sexy, but you will make money on it, and it's a great way to get exposure to the market and benefit from diversification. Now let's check out what we got with ETFs.
So an ETF is very similar. It's still a basket of securities. So when you buy the ETF, you're still getting a small percentage of the basket of securities. The only difference with an ETF, which stands for Exchange Traded Fund, is it means that you can buy and sell an ETF just like you would a stock on the market.
And that's the huge difference. You can get in and out on a panic buy or panic sell.
For using a brokerage service to actually buy the ETF. That is, unless, of course, you have access to a discount brokerage, such as Robinhood, which offers 0 commission on trades. If you guys would like to use my Robinhood referral link, the link is in the description below. I believe you do get a free stock if you use my referral link.
All right, I'm not going to deal with his Robinhood referral links. Once he starts blazing Robinhood, he loses all credibility with me. But let's talk about ETFs. ETFs are the platypus of funds. They've got the DNA of a mutual fund in that it's a basket of stocks, so you get the benefit of diversification. However, they trade just like regular stocks. So unlike a mutual fund where you can only buy and sell at 4 p.m., you can get in or out of an ETF anytime during the day. But there's other benefits. ETFs management fees are a lot lower. So that means the bozo who's choosing which M&Ms to go into the bag, you're paying him a lot less money than you are with a mutual fund. Also, remember when we talked about mutual funds, we had that capital gains tax issue? Not the case with ETFs. So ETFs are really an interesting vehicle. And there's multiple kinds out there. You've got passive ETFs, which just basically track the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. You've got active ETFs where somebody's choosing which M&Ms to put in the bag. You've got crypto ETFs. ETFs are powerful investments, but I don't want you to think they're flawless. Like any other investment, there's a fair amount of risk that goes into buying and selling ETFs. So let's talk about that a little bit so you can make a good decision. Now, the first one I want to talk about are the leveraged ETFs. These are the ones that go 2x, 3x, even 5x of a certain index or specific market. So think about it, the S&P. So if it's a 3x on the S&P, it's guaranteeing you 3 times the return in a day of the S&P 500 for that day. Now, the reason that these are so risky is that every night they reset. So that means whoever the manager is having to buy high and sell low every night. And that has a drag on the productivity of these leveraged ETFs. The next kind of risk is liquidity risk. Just because ETFs are traded on an exchange does not mean you're going to be able to find a buyer. There are many ETFs out there that aren't very liquid, meaning that if you got to get out, you may have to drop your price in order to find a buyer for that asset. Now, I don't want to scare you in that case because a lot of the ETFs are liquid. The Spiders, for example, which trades the S&P 500, has a very narrow spread, meaning that the asking price and the offering price are usually very close to each other. And you can move those ETFs pretty quickly. But liquidity risk is something to keep in mind when trading some of the more exotic ETFs. The third type of risk I want to talk about is volatility. ETFs are highly popular, especially with novice investors, which is a good thing because it creates a deep market in liquidity. But it can be a bad thing when times get tough. In a panic, often ETFs are the first things to get thrown out, to get sold, which can create increased selling, downward pressure, and make it a lot riskier in bad times. ETFs are good investments, and we like the platypus a lot. But like any other investment, there's a lot of risk.
And now, the mystery fund is revealed.
Often forgotten, frequently unknown, it trades like an ETF, it throws off cash like a REIT, and it offers exposure to exotic vehicles. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you The closed-end fund.
Mr. CEF, right to the camera. Look right here.
If the mutual fund is the group project and the ETF is the smartphone, then the closed-end fund is the VIP room.
Oh, yes.
It's got strict and limited capacity. It only has a certain amount of shares. It has some incredible value. It sells at a discount often to the net asset value.
Oh, wow.
And you can get into some pretty exclusive and exotic instruments like private debt and other types of bond issues. The best part of closed-end funds is the value that they deliver. Like any other fund that we've been talking about today, closed-end funds are a basket of assets that take advantage of diversification. Closed-end funds, however, are measured in terms of what's called net asset value. And that's just a fancy Wall Street way of saying you take the value of each one of the items within this basket. So each M&M, say, we value each M&M separately, and then we add together the value of all the M&Ms and come up with a number. That number is the net asset value. Now, you would think that would be the value of what the closed-end fund trades at on our exchange. It's not. Frequently, closed-end funds will trade at a discount to the net asset value, meaning you can buy $100 of assets for only 90 bucks. Now, closed-end funds also offer great cash return. Generally, these funds will throw off between 8 and 10% annually in dividends. Usually, they'll pay it monthly. So there's some great capital return in closed-end funds as well. Just like ETFs, there are many different types of closed-end funds. You've got municipal closed-end funds, which are tax-free. You've got corporate debt funds. You've got sovereign debt funds, which is basically just government debt that the fund is holding. So far, we have painted this picture of closed-end funds as this miraculous investment vehicle. They're not perfect. Like any other investment vehicle, there's a lot of risk. Let's talk about that for a moment. The first type of risk is borrowing. Closed-end funds tend to take advantage of what's called leverage, meaning that they borrow money in order to buy their assets. And in an up market, that works incredibly well. Gives the shareholders a great return. However, when that market turns south and starts going down, closed-end funds go down fast, and they tend to go into the toilet a lot quicker than other investments. The second type of risk is liquidity. We talked about this when we discussed exchange-traded funds. Remember those ETFs that didn't have a lot of buyers and sellers? Closed-end funds are very similar. So there is a risk that if you have to get out of a closed-end fund, you may not be able to get the price that you want. You may have to take a haircut in order to get that price. The third downside of closed-end funds are the management fees. Remember that bozo with mutual funds that was picking the M&Ms and what color? Well, we got that bozo here with closed-end funds also. However, though, we're paying them usually almost twice as much as what we pay the mutual fund bozo. So they are expensive. So in sum, closed-end funds have a place in your portfolio. However, like any other investment vehicle, you've got to understand how they work, where the risks are, and where the benefits are, so that way you can make a smart decision.
And now, the not-so-exciting conclusion.
That does it for Fun with Funds on the Hostile Takeover. Let's recap. Diversification. It's the undisputed champion of market success. You cannot succeed in this market without being diversified. In order to get diversified, we take advantage of funds. It offers us a basket of stocks or other assets at a lower price. You've got index funds. These are funds that just track the market, low cost, and gives you a lot of diversification. You got mutual funds. This is a basket of stocks that are selected by a manager. That manager is picking the M&Ms and charging us a lot of money to pick the M&Ms. What's worse is that bozo tends not to actually beat the index funds. So you can do better and go cheaper with index funds. You've got exchange-traded funds. That's our platypus of funds. Those are the funds that behave like a mutual fund and give you diversification, but trade like a stock. Then finally, you've got your closed-end funds. These are funds that offer diversification, but also higher yields and access to some exotic sorts of instruments. I've been getting a lot of questions about where new investors should be putting their money. First and foremost, there is no one-size-fits-all solution. What is good for me may not be good for you. So you've got to understand all the facts and apply them as it works for you. However, if I were starting out today, I would go 60% index funds, 20% ETFs, 20% closed-end funds. That would give me the benefit of a lot of diversification, the upside gains on some of the more exotic instruments and the ETFs, and a little bit of cash coming out of the closed-end funds. Now you'll notice I did not mention mutual funds. And there's a reason why. I am going to get so much hate mail on this one, but let's talk mutual funds for a moment. These are outdated dinosaurs of a day gone by. They are relics that are no longer relevant. In the day and age of AI research and access to information, you do not need to pay someone 1 or 2% to go out there and do the same research that you can go find out of Google or Gemini or ChatGPT. So I would forego looking into mutual funds. I would stick with the ETFs. I would stick with the index funds and a little bit sprinkling of the closed-end funds. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. And if you found this content valuable, please consider liking and subscribing, and we will see you next time.